Hello friends. In our broad theme on the Union Executive, today we will be discussing the Union Council of Ministers. Along with the constitutional provisions, the experiences of the functioning of the Union government over the years leaves no doubt that the President of India is a constitutional head of the state. He is in fact a mere titular head. The long list of powers that are entrusted to the President in reality are exercised by none other than the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. In fact, following the British parliamentary model, the office of the President is one of great dignity and authority, just like the British monarch. However, the British monarch enjoys a greater authority, owing to the hereditary nature of the office, behind which lies the history of centuries. What is indeed strange about the Indian Constitution lies in the fact that neither the Prime Minister nor his Council of Ministers are constitutionally declared to be the real executive. Yet, it is they who play a key role in the entire administration of the nation. Now let us see how a minister is appointed. According to Article 74 of the Indian Constitution, there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at its head to aid and advise the President. The President appoints the leader of the party having a majority in the Parliament as the Prime Minister. Though the President selects the Prime Minister, but the other ministers are appointed by him only on the advice of the Prime Minister. Not only that, the Prime Minister even distributes the portfolios amongst the different ministers. Though officially they are being distributed by the President, the final say with regard to the distribution of portfolios is that of the Prime Minister. A minister may be chosen from the members of either house of the Parliament. Here it must be noted that a member of one house can take part in the proceedings of the other house, though he or she is not entitled to cast his or her vote in a house of which he is not a member. And this is in accordance with Article 88 of the Indian Constitution. Our Constitution has no bar in appointing a person from outside the Parliament as a minister. But here, at the same time, it must be noted that a person so appointed shall remain in the post for a period of 6 months, during which he or she has to secure a seat in either house of the Parliament, either by nomination or by election, as the case may be. By virtue of this provision, Pandit Pant, who was not the member of the Parliament, was appointed as a minister of the Union, though subsequently he secured a seat at the Rajya Sabha. Not only that, even Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he assumed the office of the Prime Minister in the year 2004, was a member of the Rajya Sabha and not of the Lok Sabha. As such, the very convention that the Prime Minister being the member of the Lok Sabha is not always strictly being followed. The strength or the total numbers of ministers in a Council of Ministers is not mentioned in the Constitution. In fact, it varies from time to time and it is being determined according to the exigencies of time. For instance, in the year 1961, the total strength of the Council of Ministers was 47, which rose to 60 in the year 1975. But this number came down to 24 in the year 1977 when Janata government was at the center, and it once again rose to 58 in the year July 1989. The BJP government, at present the BJP government with Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi started with a mere number of 23 ministers at the Union. Now let us see the term of the office of the Council of Ministers. Generally, the term of office of the Council of Ministers is same as that of the term of the Lok Sabha, that is of 5 years. If the Lok Sabha is dissolved within the period of 5 years, then the term of the Council of Ministers automatically comes to an end. Again, if it is enhanced, the term of Council of Ministers will also be enhanced. If a vote of no confidence is passed during the period of 5 years, then the ministers bears the constitutional obligation to tender their resignation in the parliament. In fact, the ministers, the collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers is basically to the Lok Sabha, even though some of the members of the ministry may belong to the Rajya Sabha. So long as the Council of Ministers could retain their majority support in the parliament, they do not have to fear so far as the term of their office is concerned. In fact, a lot depends upon the support that is being provided by the Lok Sabha. Now let us see the composition and the classification of the Union Council of Ministers. In fact, at this juncture of our discussion, it is essential for us to understand what exactly is meant by the term Council of Ministers. According to Professor D.D. Basu, the Council of Ministers is a composite body consisting of different categories of ministries. The Constitution does not classify the ministers into different ranks. In fact, all this has been done informally following the English model. Though it is legally sanctioned under Section 2 of the Salary and Allowances Act of Ministers in the 1952. In fact, it was Mr. Gopalaswamy Iyengar who, in his report presented in the year 1949, had classified the ministers broadly into 3 categories. They are namely the cabinet ministers, the ministers of state, and the deputy ministers. Let us examine these 3 categories for our convenience in the following manner. The first categories of ministers is the cabinet ministers. The cabinet ministers play a crucial role in the formulation and implementation of the governmental policies. They are in charge of some important departments like that of finance, defense, home, external affairs, and so on. In fact, a cabinet is composed of the Prime Minister and the members who are closely associates of the Prime Minister. Sometimes in a cabinet, the senior members who have their expertise knowledge in the field of administration or are experienced in the administrative field are incorporated or included in the list of cabinet members. The ministers of state are the second categories of ministers. They are not the members of the cabinet. Despite being the non-members of the cabinet, they are sometimes called upon into the cabinet meeting if some of the decisions with regard to the concerned departments are to be made in the cabinet. The ministers of state are basically given in charge of an independent ministry, or they can even be placed under a cabinet minister. In terms of importance and position, deputy ministers occupies the third category of ministries. They help the departmental ministers in carrying out the administration of the department. They do not attend the cabinet meeting. After viewing this classification, Professor Piley has observed that a 3-tier ministerial hierarchy was established in India, with cabinet ministries at the top, followed by the ministers of state in the middle, and the deputy minister occupying the lowest rung of the ladder. At this juncture of our discussion, a distinction can be drawn between the ministers who are the members of the cabinet and the others. The cabinet ministers are not only the chiefs of the departments, but their responsibilities often transcended the boundaries of their department into the entire field of administration. The cabinet is a small body within the council of ministers, but it is perhaps the most powerful body of the government. So the cabinet becomes not only a distinct entity different from the council of ministers, but it has developed itself into an institution with its own detailed organization. Now, here it must at the same time be also noted that over the years the authority of the cabinet was well established in India. Though theoretically the executive powers are being vested with the Council of Ministers, but in reality it is the cabinet who wields the actual power. Many describes the authority of the cabinet as, or the dominance of the cabinet as, the cabinet dictatorship. The strength of the cabinet today is a result of the support that it receives from the party of which it is a member, and also from the overwhelming strength of the party in parliament. With the stable parliamentary support, the cabinet emerged as a leader of the parliament. Now, despite this threefold classification of ministries, it cannot be denied that the final say with regard to the composition, reorganization, distribution of portfolios, and even dismissal of a minister within the Council of Ministers is none other than that of the Prime Minister. Under the Indian Constitution, there is no post of a Deputy Prime Minister. But at the time of different Prime Minister, we find that a number of cabinet ministers has been appointed as the Deputy Prime Minister. For instance, when Pandit Nehru was the Prime Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was appointed as the Deputy Prime Minister. Similarly, at the time of Indira Gandhi, when she was the Prime Minister, Morarji Desai was appointed as the Deputy Prime Minister. Again, when Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister at the Janata regime in the year 1977, we find that there were two Deputy Prime Ministers being appointed, namely Mr. Charan Singh and Mr. Jagjivan Ram. Now let us see the powers and functions of the Council of Ministers. Now today the functions of the cabinet is identified with those that are assigned to the council by the constitution. For our convenience, they can be summed up in the following manner. First of all, the determination and implementation of the policy. Now, theoretically, in a parliamentary system, it is the parliament who determines and implements the policies, and on the basis of such policies as implemented by the parliament, the Council of Ministers makes a final decision and carries out the administration. But in reality, we find that it is the cabinet and not the parliament who determines the policies. And after it is being determined by the cabinet, it is placed before the parliament for ratification. Now, the cabinet members are the senior-most members of a party, and that too of a party having a majority in the Lok Sabha. So obviously, when it is being placed before the parliament, when the policies are determined and it is being placed before the parliament for ratification, it is none other than a mere official and a routine function on part of the parliament. Secondly, the formulation of laws. The parliament is empowered to formulate a law, but in reality we find it is the cabinet who makes the laws. The draft of the bills that are placed before the parliament are made under the supervision and direction of the Union Cabinet. Since the cabinet enjoys the majority support in the parliament or in the Lok Sabha, so obviously it does not face any difficulty in passing the bill into an act. The third important functions of the Council of Ministers happen to be in the field of administration. The most important role of the cabinet is perhaps in the field of administration. Though the Indian Constitution has granted the executive power in the hands of the President, yet it is the Council of Ministers who plays the important role in the field of administration. Through the permanent government officials of the various departments, the concerned minister discharges their responsibility. Not only that, the cabinet also plays an important role in implementing these laws as passed in the parliament. Next is the financial responsibility of the Council of Ministers. One of the primary responsibility of the cabinet is to determine the income and expenditure of the government. So, at the very beginning of every financial year, an annual budget is placed before the parliament. Though the task of preparing the budget solely lies with the finance minister, but we find that in important financial matters or with regard to the important financial decisions like that of the imposition of income tax, distribution and allocation of funds, etc., are determined by the cabinet members. Fifthly, in ensuring coordination, cabinet plays a crucial role. The cabinet coordinates between the executive and the legislature or in the parliament. The role played by the cabinet is significant in this regard. All the cabinet ministers are in charge of one department, and through the permanent government officials of the departments, the ministers discharges their responsibilities. Such a situation demands coordination amongst the various departments of the government. The cabinet helps in ensuring the coordination of the various departments for the smooth functioning of the government. Sixthly, the powers related to appointment. Article 74 of the Indian Constitution clearly states that there shall be a council of ministers to aid and help the President of India. Now, the President makes several important appointments like that of the governors of different states, the foreign diplomats, the ambassadors, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and other judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court, the Attorney General of India, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, and so on. But all these appointments that are made by the presidents are actually being done on the recommendations of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Next is the powers related to foreign states. One of the principal responsibility of the cabinet is to determine, control and execute the foreign policies. On the basis of the ideology of the existing political party at the Union, foreign policies are usually being framed. So, it is the responsibility of the External Affairs Minister to chalk out the foreign policies of the country. But we find that this important ministry is also one of the cabinet, the External Affairs Department is also plays a crucial role, and this department occupies an important position under a cabinet minister, and it is being placed under a cabinet minister. Not only the External Affairs Minister, but we find that sometimes even the Prime Minister at different point of time takes initiative in the foreign activities or in the foreign policies of the nation. In fact, the executive power relating to foreign affairs is exercised by the Council of Ministers in reality. All the ministers in the name of the President, so far as the declaration of the war and the conclusion of peace is concerned, even though they are being made by the President, but they are actually made on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Finally, we find the powers related to emergency. Though constitutionally the emergency powers are being granted to the President of India, yet we find that the President can proclaim an emergency only on the advice of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. So, declaration of an emergency due to war, external aggression or armed rebellion, or even due to breakdown of a constitutional machinery of a state, or even at times of financial crisis, we find that it is actually being made on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers, more particularly on the written advice of that of the Prime Minister. Summing up the above discussions on the powers and functions of the Council of Ministers, to conclude, we can say that the Cabinet is perhaps the steering wheel of the ship of the state. The Cabinet is in reality the government in practice. In fact, the voice of the state is, for all practical purposes, is none other than the voice of the Cabinet. So, that is why Professor S.L. Sikri, in his book on Indian government and politics, has observed that Cabinet is the core of the Indian constitutional system. Thank you.